We have Fiscal Health, which is a software created by ResourceX, the group we've been working with, to help us figure out how to allocate our expenditures or what we can do to bring our budget in line. So right now, I'll go back. This is the baseline budget. And this is the blue line is the revenue, and the red line is the expense, and that's what we had in place pre-COVID. So this is what council was presented as the revenue budget, and then what was approved by council as the expenditure budget for 2020 here. So you can see revenue was just barely projected to be over expenses. And then going forward, that was just projected to have salary increases of 2%, I think mostly for unions. But as you can see too, actual is prior, so 17, 18, and 19. And as you can see, 19 was a very good year. So what we did is we uploaded the projections that I presented to council on the 29th into the best case, midline, and worst case scenarios. So I'll go to the best case. And as you can see, the revenue here, this blue line, I believe that was in the charts that were presented to council on the 29th, so that may look a little familiar. The dotted lines are the baseline that council approved that we just showed. And it shows a little V dip, so that's what we were expecting the economy to do in a best case scenario, where it dips and then it comes back fairly rapidly. So then the question was, how do we make our expenditures meet that scenario? What the software allows us to do is create an initiative, and an initiative is something we put in there as to how much expenditures we think we can save. So for instance, as Tanisha mentioned, the shared work program is one thing that we implemented with some voluntary furloughs. So it's nice where right now there's a checkbox on this, and if I uncheck it, it changes the expenditures because I've estimated how much we actually saved with that program. And I can toggle it on and off. Now that one is not much change you see in this red line here. We're looking at the 2020 data point. But if we go down to the Coronavirus Relief Fund, that's the $1.7 million the city got from the state as the Coronavirus Relief Fund. The council approved creating that fund. So if I toggle that one off, you can see that line comes up to meet the revenue. If I toggle it back on, that means we're transferring $1.7 million worth of expenditures out of the general fund into that Coronavirus Relief Fund. That is a one-time movement. So our expenditures are going to jump way up again because it's not something that we'll have available to us in 2021. But the good news is that for 2020, you can see that our expenditures are less than our revenue. So if we end up in a best case scenario, we are able to have our expenditures less than our revenue for 2020. Talking about some of the other initiatives that we have listed here, estimated salary savings, which is all the vacancies that we have that Tanisha is going to go over in addition as well. We moved paramedic pay that was in the general fund previously. We've moved that to the ambulance fund. And then we're also planning to use some of the ambulance fund money to supplement the general fund transfer that happens every year to the fire pension fund. Now the transfer that the ambulance fund is going to do is another one-time type of transfer. So it's not something that would happen in 2021. And that's also why you see the expenditures jump way back up in 2021, because we won't have a lot of these savings. And then in addition, there's the Parks and Rec savings, which is basically, since we don't have any programs going on, we have savings there. So that's the best case scenario, which of course is good news. The midline case scenario, if it switches, there we go. That's where the revenue dips down and it takes a longer time to recover. And I still have the same initiatives available, but as you can see, it has a gap here of about $1 million. So that's still $1 million that if we end up in the midline scenario, we would need to make up. And then of course, the one none of us want to see is the worst case scenario. So there is a very large gap there, as Tanisha mentioned, and we're really hoping that we don't end up in that situation. So that's how we've utilized this software to help us come up with some of the things that we're presenting.